Howdy, everybody from a very nice, sunny Austin, Texas. And Ed, thank you for that presentation. It actually ties in a little bit with what I wanted to talk today about, which is how cloud security testing is providing a lot of new opportunities with the changes that we've seen, and then focus specifically on Cloud WAF. So this is the slide everybody has about how everything hit the fan a few years ago and caused quite a disruption in how things were slowly moving to the cloud, and then had to quickly change up and rush into the cloud in literal do or die situation for many of the organizations that we service. In terms of the advances in technologies, I feel like after listening to Ed's discussion from Absolute that we could add in application persistence here as new technologies that are becoming more relevant in the distributed workforce. Now, in everything I've been taught about sales is that in chaos, there is opportunity. And so in the movement to the cloud, I see this as a way of ushering in new technologies into the AMTSO umbrella that get tested. And so in discussing that, we're seeing, for instance, when we're looking at Cloud WAF, that there's a plethora of new vendors, and most of which, the majority of which, are not part of AMTSO. So specifically, of the 9 vendors that we were able to test in our last Cloud WAF run, we ended up testing many that are not part of AMTSO. And looking at the cloud firewall, or the advanced cloud firewall testing that we are in the process of undertaking right now, most of which are, the majority of which are also not members of AMTSO. So there's the new vendor aspect that brings an opportunity with it, as well as the new methods for testing that come with the new and evolving attack surface that we're now protecting with the remote workforce. And what we're seeing is, in the testing that we're doing, a lot of this goes beyond malware alone and starts looking at the tactics, techniques, and procedures. And with these new protective measures comes the need also to test the products themselves to see if they are increasing the attack surface for our customers. And so there's the testing as well of the products themselves for their own security that then this branches out to. And with all this new testing and all the new vendors being pulled into testing under the AMTSO standards, I feel that provides additional credibility and relevance for AMTSO within this industry. With the first round of testing that we did for Cloud WAF, 9 of the 10 vendors tested were successfully tested. What was interesting was the one of the vendors, no matter how much time we spent with the support staff from that vendor, we were unable to get them up and running. And so that's interesting to take away, that when products are being sold, even a high value products can sometimes have difficulties in the deployment. And so there's lessons we're learning about deployment, as well as just getting a baseline in the security efficacy and then the operational efficiency of these various devices that we tested. Overall, we were impressed with the operational efficiency and found that for the majority of the products tested, the out-of-box configuration provided adequate security measures, but that there were vendors that had a different sales cycle where it wasn't something that was usually hands-off. And so in the testing of one of the major vendors, it was discovered that their documentation on their website, as well as on Amazon Marketplace, was extremely antiquated. And so we helped them get that corrected so that their customers could get more value out of the solutions they're buying without having to talk to the vendor themselves. We also noticed that there were a number of areas where collectively the products tested struggled to provide security. And those are the 4 areas listed below: HTML injection attacks, the server-side template injection attacks, as well as path traversal and custom web shell attacks. So learning from the lessons we had from the baseline Cloud WAF testing, going into this round, which is currently underway, we are improving the scoring metrics. The feedback that we got from the vendors that we were working with was that in some areas we had, for instance, like a brute force attack where you're running thousands of attempts to basically break in. And if at the time we were able to crack the device, then it scored a 0. And if you're able to block all of the 1,000 attacks, then you scored 100%. Whereas some of the devices took several hundred attempts, but were eventually succumbed to the attacks. The feeling was that there should be some representation that it wasn't just a complete 0, a complete miss, but some credit should be given for the protection that was provided. And so taking that thought process and applying it to some of the other resilience tests that we did in order to more accurately represent the full capabilities of the devices tested has been taken into consideration and will be applied in the outcomes of reports for this round of testing. Now, getting back into the increasing the amount of vendors that are participating under the AMTSO test standard, we are expanding the Cloud WAF test from just including the AWS WAF to also include Microsoft and Google WAF products, and so that we can see how the big 3 cloud providers are doing with or performing in the security space. Also, from what we saw last time in testing, we found that we need to enhance the false positive test cases to try and differentiate a little better on the false positive side in terms of product capabilities. And then lastly, we're resolved, or actually we've got more resiliency testing coming up in this version, which will include a lot more looking at the solution's vulnerability and ability to protect itself from being targeted for abuse as well as bypass, so that we can make sure that the product itself or the application being used for security does not increase the security risk that a customer has. And so with looking through this, we feel that the Cloud WAF is a good example from both a testing methodology, meaning that it brings in a lot of new test methods and new vendors into the opportunity to come into the AMTSO fold, as well as, since this test is relevant with the community, that it helps add the credentials and strength of AMTSO in the industry. So with that, short and sweet, any questions?